Hello, everyone. I'm Max Mariotti. You're listening to GZ Radio, and I'm here with Nik Nocturnal. He's a popular metal musician on YouTube and an active Twitch streamer. Thank you for being here, man. Really, really appreciate it. It's a pleasure for me. I've been a big fan for a while, and it's so cool to be able to interview you.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I kind of want to start with like just how did you start playing guitar? Like the fact that you covered a whole Trivium album in 24 hours is just nuts. But but I just wanted to know like what influenced you and how'd you start?
Well, I grew up essentially with my cousin, and he was always, playing rock, metal music, and he also played guitar. So I always kind of wanted to get into it just from watching him do it. And then he got Guitar Hero one day, and then I started playing Guitar Hero with him, and I loved that game so much. I played it for quite a bit when I was pretty young, and then just from there, I was like, all right, like I like Guitar Hero. My cousin plays guitar. I just want to do the real thing, and that's it. I essentially started. I was lucky enough to start a few lessons with a few decent teachers, and I finally found one that was really solid and I could connect with a little easier, and taught me a lot of the basics like scales, modes. Even though I didn't really understand how it all like linked together, as I do, of course, nowadays, but it just helped me get a good understanding. And he always was really motivating, and it wasn't like a weird discouraging thing. He was like, nah, dude, like learn and do your thing. And he was really chill, and that always motivated me to want to actually do it much more. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire start of my journey. I just kept playing guitar myself, and listening to songs and seeing if there was tabs, or trying to pathetically learn by ear when I was really young, which just wouldn't turn out that great. And fast forward, that's pretty much the entire journey, is just that, learning songs and being curious and being like, oh, what's that sound, and trying to figure it out on a guitar. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Kind of in that same vein, when is learning songs by ear kind of something that you develop over time?
yeah, like I've never, I don't think, at least when I was younger, taken time to be like, I want to develop my ear. I never cared about that stuff. I always saw my teachers sometimes do that stuff, and I'd be like, how are you doing that? But I never took time to be like, oh, I want to develop my ear or do ear training of any sorts. I just kept learning stuff and learning sounds. Even if it's just me walking through a store and hearing a weird song on the radio that has a just kind of weird, I don't know, note in it that just kind of like made me go like, well, how did that just happen? I'd go home and search the song and try to find out how it works on guitar. And then just from all of that, as well as covering songs and just learning over the years, I guess I developed my ear to the point where I can learn songs at a fairly fast pace just through by ear.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so like you mentioned your cousin before, and like what kind of like were there bands that he was into, where was it like a gradual thing where you went from like, kind of rock to hard rock to metal, or was it, just full like Dillinger Escape Plan, just like, or was it instant, or was it
Oh no, it
gradual?
was definitely gradual. Like he used to originally listen to more like Guns N' Roses, Rise Against, and even like kind of Marilyn Manson-y kind of stuff, Alexis on Fire. So almost kind of getting there, but not really. And then, over the years, he started to listen to a bit more like As I Lay Dying, a bit of Avenged, and just slightly heavier stuff, but mainly As I Lay Dying. And at first I hated that music because I just didn't understand it. I was like fucking like 9 or something. I don't even know how old I
Yeah.
was. And then just because I was there all the time, it just kind of grew on me naturally, and I ended up loving that type of music. So yeah, he just used to listen to the same thing, classic rock, and then kind of developed his own. And I think nowadays he more listens to still the classic rock stuff, and not as much as the metal. I'm the one who continued the crazy metal reign and took it to much scarier territory in the metal world.
Yeah. And so yeah, like I mean, I was like, I hear it, like I heard it, like, I think someone was playing, it was like Corpse Grinder or like Cannibal Corpse at a skate park or something, and I was
Right.
like, oh my god, that's like ridiculous, like who would ever listen to that? And then I listened to Nirvana, and then I started listening to like Alice in Chains, then Metallica, and then it
Mhm.
rolled over into the poppy Bring Me the Horizon stuff, and then I hit Suicide Season, and I was like, oh, now I like this music. Okay. um,
Yeah.
but so metal was definitely, or like rock and metal was like the first genre you started playing on guitar.
It was classic rock was the
Yeah,
first, and then yeah, and then it went straight into the hard rock to metal.
that's awesome. Um, So like what are some tips that you would have? Because I know like you're obviously accomplished in writing as covers. And so what kind of tips would you have for someone trying to write a like write an album or write a song and just isn't like, overcoming writer's block essentially?
Oh, wow. I mean, a lot of people don't even know that I actually wrote probably like 100 demos to near full songs before I ever released something, even on like SoundCloud or like that. And SoundCloud was before I even touched YouTube at all. So I spent years just being excited by the idea of writing and not knowing how to write a song or any of that, and so, learning myself how a DAW works, how to use Cubase, how to program drums and not just use my mouse to click the kick drum every time I want a kick drum, which all I still have those demos. They sound hilarious. And not knowing, what a cymbal is, not understanding drums, never having bass, things like that. And just kind of riffing on my guitar and seeing what happens for quite some time. Like I'd say almost like 2-3 years before I even released maybe a song on SoundCloud that was like a song that still wasn't that great, but it was just something. It sounded like a song.
Yeah.
So doing that as well as just, learning and covering and, so many goddamn bands.
Mhm.
Even before my YouTube time, it just kind of made me get it. I understood a bit more how like why I liked what I was listening to, and I became a little more introspective of like why do I like this? Why does this make sense? Why does this flow? Why does this song have like a breakdown here and then like a solo here? Why does that make sense? Or like these guys, this is all on the same key, but sometimes they switch to this type of key, and it's a very common trend in like I don't know this type of genre. Why does that work? And I would always just love dissecting that. Like I owe a lot of my guitaring and writing improvements straight up to my curiosity, just never just giving up and just keep pushing me for no reason. I have no idea why. It just kept saying, do this, do this, do this. And I was like, oh, okay. And I would just always explore those weird, genres of music or weird sounds I'd hear that would help that all kind of come together in the end. So it was a little easier to just be like, I have this huge toolbox of different types of styles, riffs, genres that, if I need to write something next, I kind of just go with the flow of, if I create a riff or a melody, I submit to that now. And that took
Mhm.
me actually a long time to learn. That helped me overcome writer's block quite a bit of just like, I write this. Okay. I can't make this into something it's not anymore just because I have maybe a different cool riff and maybe that riff doesn't fit. I got to submit to whatever I wrote. And that first 8 seconds of that track is defining the rest. So just submit, let it go. And I started becoming more of a like a storyteller, I'd say, instead of like focusing on just the guitar things. I thought more in the perspective of a consumer, a person who just loves the music. What would
Mhm.
they want to hear next? If this was like a movie, it has to flow from start to finish. It has to tell a story with no plot holes. How do I do that? And that really, really opened my eyes when it came to writing and just getting over writer's block, to be honest.
Did you
But I
ever
still
like
have it from time to time, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean everyone gets it
Yeah.
sometimes. Did you ever find yourself like kind of as you were started like writing more and finding that kind of song structure that you liked? Did you ever find yourself kind of settling into and finding some niche bands that kind of fit that song structure that you liked, or maybe it was like slow tempo, just brutal breakdowns, or like a clean chorus kind of deal? Did you ever find yourself kind of like settling into one kind of area in terms of maybe in a genre even, but just kind of like finding your own like little niche?
Right. When it comes to the genre idea, because again, I've listened to so many different bands when I was younger. I actually like always had like different phases of legit different genres. Like my first one was, of course, like the early metalcore because I was introduced to metal through As I Lay Dying, so all that remains. Even like Bullet and stuff like that that really got me into that style. And then from there, I had an entire like melodic death metal phase that not many people know about, like In Flames, Insomnium, Dark Tranquility, like nonstop jamming those bands.
Mhm.
And so I had a bunch of those phases pretty much for like not every subgenre, because there's like so many nowadays, but like for all like kind of the big metal subgenres, like, gent, melodic death metal, deathcore, death metal itself, symphonic metal, even, that at those points in my life, I could tell when I was writing a song, it was that genre. But because I've done it all so much, it's just, I don't even know. Obviously, I'm a core kid at heart. So even my solo stuff, as well as the stuff I do with my band, have that kind of core element, just because I like that specific energy and vibe from the genre. And nowadays, metalcore, has things from deathcore. It has even some black metal influences in some songs. Like, you can do anything in metalcore, which is kind of the fun thing about it, which is why I use it as a basis too. But
Mhm.
yeah, like that was kind of the genre thing. I always had my phases, and then nowadays it's just like whatever it's kind of feeling, I'll go for that. But I'm sure I'm still a core kid in people's eyes, which, hey, I'm cool with. I love all that type of music. And yeah, when it came to other things, it was just kind of go with it. And even though people tell me I have my own style when it comes to like my Nik Nocturnal stuff, I still don't fully hear it, because I get sick of the same thing really easily. Like, if I write a song that's exactly like this and I write another one, I purposely just, my mind doesn't allow me to write an exact style, even though it all might be in the same genre, and someone outside listening to it be like, yeah, it's just a metalcore album, generic or whatever. They still all have their different flavors of different types of bands and different genres that I've listened to in my life, even if they're all based on the same thing. And yeah, I don't know if I necessarily have a niche or a niche in that market. But if I do, I guess I'm lucky, because it's so hard to get any kind of sound to stand out nowadays, because everyone is doing everything, and also everyone's doing the same thing sometimes.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Oh, for sure. I was talking with my like the kind of coordinator for the youth radio station, and we were talking about um like we were talking about how metal used to be this like mainstream almost, where Manson
Mhm.
and Metallica and these people like thrash, like Slayer, they were topping charts.
Mhm.
And they had these huge hits, and then kind of around like 99 and then the early 2000s, you had that metalcore kind of and new metal like renaissance almost,
Mhm.
but it fell out of the mainstream. Like it kind of took its own lane and went kind of nichey. um and so we were thinking, well, was it the downloadable music, was it Napster and the introduction of iTunes, was it all that kind of killed metal? Because now people are going in and they're finding what they want to listen to rather
Mhm.
than listening to what's on the radio. And so now we've got radio music as a genre. like
Right.
um and so do you essentially think downloadable music was the death of mainstream metal?
Oh, I have no idea, because I was way too young at that time to even could consider it. All I remember from those days, man, is LimeWire, the OG, kind of get an Insta virus on your mom's computer kind of.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, I have no idea. All I know is nowadays, I love what it has, I guess indirectly transformed into, which is just streaming in general, the ease of
Hmm.
access to get music. I think that's so important, even though, of course, bands will complain that, Spotify rips them off and they don't get a bunch of money nowadays. And there's definitely not as much money in the specific just band route as it was, way before, even though there's tons of different avenues nowadays to make a lot of money, or not a lot of money, a decent amount of money as a metal musician, as long as you're expanding and, utilizing a lot of different income sources, and not just, here's my band, that is my everything for income. But I love that, people can discover underground bands that easily, but it also makes it harder for a lot of those underground bands to stick out. But I
Yeah.
don't know, I feel like that's almost even more rewarding. It's like, if you're an underground band and you can stick out and you're decent at marketing, not only will you actually be discovered a little easier, you will really kind of explode pretty
Yeah.
fast, as long as you kind of hit all the right boxes, and you'll get out of that, just, oh yeah, it's just another new band kind of
Yeah.
feel that people have. So
I was watching an interview with Ricky Horror Olsen from Motionless, and he was saying, like, a lot of these bands, like, they come up to me at shows and they just say, why can't I have the amount of fame that you guys do, and why is our band not as popular? And you said, well, if you're good, people will listen to you. And
Mm,
so as long as you take that and run with it, you'll be successful. And that was
mm,
like, that was his very basic kind of,
mm,
man, you make good music, people will listen to it. And if you play your cards right, you will blow up. It's like, it's
mm,
that thing where as long as you have talent, and
mm.
ambition, you're going to make it. It's like,
Yeah.
but like me and my coordinator were also talking about, like, you think about like SoundCloud, for example, and Bandcamp, where people can just put their stuff on.
Mm,
And you have this kind of explosion in the amount of musicians that you can hear publicly. And we're thinking, well, shouldn't that have brought every genre up in popularity and like
mhm.
popularity? But no, it brought like hip hop up in popularity. And like
Right.
we were thinking, well, all all musicians of every genre are making music now and publishing it publicly, but there are just so many more musicians that are like doing hip hop and doing pop and stuff like that, and so that's what's kind of burying these other subgenres a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was drawn to metal just because of the amount of raw talent that has to go into a metal song, because you can't auto tune a scream.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, it's a lot more, you're listening to it and you're like, wow, these guys are good, rather than,
Mm,
maybe that's, maybe that's totally auto tuned or
mm,
whatever. Um, but yeah, so like kind of leading from metal into like digital kind of territory, what kind of, like, through doing the lessons and getting into metal, what kind of inspired you to go, hey, maybe YouTube's a viable option for getting my content out?
well, I just was making a lot of music at the time, and I would share it like with like my friends at school, like two of them, and I'd have like I feel so happy doing that, just having somebody to listen to it. It would give me the biggest like smile on my face, and I was like, maybe I should share it with more people. So I was like, well, how do I do it? And SoundCloud was definitely just, I don't know, it was just the first thing I saw to do that. It didn't require video or anything. It was just put your song on there. So it was just easy. So I threw it on there. And then I had, even if I had like 5 people listen to the track and one person comment, I'd be like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. 13-year-old Nick, super stoked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'd be super happy about that. And then I, would watch YouTube because, I knew of the guitar cover god at the time, which was Killer Buckeye. And, that guy's still like a legend in the community to this day. And like him, and then some of the instrumental artists that didn't get super popular over the years. Some like Sithue, Angel Vivaldi, did actually blow up a decent amount. And Shades of Black, which is actually this dude who does solo, like Egyptian kind of style core before like I've heard anyone really do that stuff, and he did it so well. And those guys were really my inspiration to like be like, all right, like let's try YouTube, because all these guys are just releasing music, and Killer Buckeyes doing covers. Let's release my music and do covers. It's kind of just that seemed to make sense, and
Mm-hmm.
so I released music. And I do the covers kind of just for fun too, like just throw them out there. And I just got lucky one day by covering, I think it was, I forgot exactly which one. It might have been the After the Burial, Lost in the Static track. I covered that really fast, and I did a horrible job. But I didn't know that that was like a skill to cover something fast. Because again, like it's not like I had a huge group of like musicians growing up, or like any other guitarist I would jam with to like kind of compare
Mm-hmm.
myself with and be like, oh, this is actually something special. So people would keep commenting like, dude, like how the do that so fast? Like the song just came out. I'm like, I just learned it, like I had no clue what that meant. And then I did that for a different song, and then the same thing happened, and that video got a lot of traction. And I was like, oh, this is like maybe a thing. And I actually realized that probably like 6 months after of doing it, which is like, oh, like I guess this is kind of cool. Like people like it. So I just kept doing that for like 4 years.
Like having that kind of being like the first, like, jump
Yeah,
on it. Yeah.
first metal cover guy of like new songs
That's,
essentially.
yeah, I mean, that's really cool. And I mean, that ability is crazy. I would love to be able to do that someday. But yeah, watching your videos and being like, dude, that just came out. Yeah, like even I do. I'm like, what?
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes. Um, but yeah, so like I also have another question, kind of like, so from doing covers and being like, wow, this works, what kind of inspired you to go like a comedic route in some of your videos?
So like for and again, my numbers are gonna be off because I don't even remember my own YouTube journey. It was just it's been a while, man.
Oh yeah.
It was maybe 3 or 4 years of doing just covers, literally never even saying a word in my video ever in any video on my channel. So nobody even knew how I sounded, like if I
Mm.
spoke a word, right? It was that crazy, and like I was just like, like the covers are cool, but they are such a grind. And at that point, like I had probably over 500 videos of covers of new songs, and that was it. And it was a lot of grind. And I would notice other people, like of course Jared Dines, Rob Scallon, Stevie T, and a few of the other dudes. I'm forgetting their names right now, that were kind of doing the more funny stuff,
Mm.
and they were blowing up too. And I was like, wow, this is funny. This probably would take me like 1/10 of the time than learning a song, and it doesn't now. It actually takes quite a bit of time to do those kind of comedy skit things. So I was just like, let's try it, and it was really weird. And I did it for my first kind of talking video, and I think it was me explaining how to learn songs really quickly, and I tried to organize it. It wasn't really funny. It was more like infotainment in
Mhm.
some fashion. It was much more on the educational side, and people really seemed to love that. And I was like, oh, okay. Again, that's how anytime I do new content, it's like I'll be like, oh, okay, like I guess I'll try it some more, and see how it happens. And so I kept going that route, and then I tried the funnier stuff, like the almost like copy paste Jared stuff of like instead I would do the most used type things instead of like just like
Mhm.
the stereotypes. So it's the same. And I would try to do that and replicate that, and people seemed to like it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kept doing that because I know I have, especially at that time, a large, I had a lot of knowledge about the genres and what made them that genres and the stereotypes, and not to say the stereotypes in a bad way. I actually think in a very good way when it comes to some of the music stuff, because it's just patterns on how to play that stuff and how to understand it. And it's funny when people are like, oh yeah, like that's right, like that type of music does use that like all the time, and then they get that realization, and that's kind of how it connects with them and makes them laugh and want to share with their friend, and all of
Mm.
that. So I was just doing that, and people seemed to like it, and I kind of blended that in with my content naturally as I could. And then I kept just being like, well, I explored that route. And over the years, I would be like, oh, like reactions, like this is kind of a new thing. Like I don't fucking get it at all. I think this is a weird type of content, but like, whatever, let's meme it up. I'm already embarrassing myself on the internet. Let's try it out. Did that. I was like, oh, okay. Same kind of thing. I was like, oh, people seem to kind of dig this.
Yeah.
Um, and I just kept branching off to different types of content by doing exactly that, and being inspired by what I'm seeing on YouTube, as well as just random ideas I would think in my room, like, types of guitar students, where I would just be like, I teach all the time. Like, I wonder how a video would go if I was kind of giving the perspective of a guitar student, and their shitty guitar teachers, or a guitar teacher and their shitty guitar students, right?
Yeah.
So then, I just kept expanding like that, and now I kind of have that. I feel that cool freedom of just like, I don't have to do a cover. I don't have to do this. I do it because I just really want to, or I just do whatever. Like if there's some dumbass idea in my head that I think will work, or maybe not, but I just like get a stupid chuckle for like a second when I think about it. I'm like, done. That's gonna be hilarious. Sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't, and that's fine. But the best part is just I have fun making it no matter what.
Yeah.
So yeah, it helps with that cover burnout, which is also a reason why I wanted to kind of branch out.
Yeah. From, doing covers and then going into the comedy and how did that evolve into Termina? Which
Termina has a funny story, because it actually started with me covering a Down and Dirty song, Heaven Sent, which is kind of a weird branch. And I'd cover that song, and the vocalist was really nice at the time, Ezekiel Pearson, not Dennis. This was the Ezekiel era. And he messaged me. He was like, dude, like, like good job on the cover. I was like, oh, thank you, man. Yeah, you're the vocalist, right? And we talked a little bit, and he was really nice. And that was it. And we didn't talk for a while. And then they went through this whole thing of him, the band never going anywhere because it's like a cursed band essentially, and there's just so much weird shit going behind the scenes. So he left, and he hit me up, and he's like, hey, like, did you want to do something together, right? And I was like, I wasn't really looking for any projects because I have Nik Nocturnal. That's my like, that's when I write. But I was like, dude, this dude is talented. Like, I
Hmm.
know he is real. Like, we can do something special. And it's like, I've kind of wanted an outlet to make, at that time, almost like not instrumental focused music, like just good metal music, like that kind of down and dirty formula where it's just here's almost easy core, but I wanted to do it right, not
Hmm.
this really cheesy way. I wanted to do it right with underlying technicalities and technical abilities that made it really special and actually stand out from all the other easy core style bands going on. So I was like, okay, I don't have time for this now. Let's do it. And we did that. So we were writing, and well, I was writing the instrumentals and stuff. I had a few demos, and Ezekiel, he's a tattoo artist, so he became busy with that, and eventually it just couldn't work out because again we just had different schedules, and that was it. And I'm still good buddies with him to this day. He's a really talented dude. I was like, well, I have all these demos, like they're not really for my solo stuff because they just have a different vibe. Like they need a vocalist on them. I was like, well, if I was going to start a band today, who would I have hit up? Andy. Like,
Hmm.
well, that was just the first thing came on. Like, yeah, I would have hit up Andy to start a band. So I that same day sent him the demos. I was like, hey, I know you're in like 17 bands. Do you want to start? Do you want to do this with me? I have demos that are going to be just garbage if I don't. And I sent them to him. He's like, these are sick. Let's go. And that was it. That was it. We just started working and going from there. That's kind of the birth of like Termina, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And Void, like you said, the easy core being more special, it was really special. Like I heard, like on a more personal note, I saw, your Liquid Tone Touch reaction, and I was a big Polyphia fan at the time. And then
Mm,
I found Termina, and I was like, and then I found, Lucid, and I was like, oh my God. And then eventually from there, I was like, I need to watch all these videos. And so I kind of got sucked into your channel after I saw Lucid because I just like I could sense that it was just a very special track.
mm,
And I did the same thing with your new track, and like it's something special, man. It really
mm.
is. So, congratulations on making such a mind blowingly awesome song.
Thank you. It's the Abyss.
It's crazy cool. I mean, your guitar is obviously insane, and then Andy's vocals, he's incredibly talented, and so
Mm,
that all just coalesces into something that is really unique. And it has like, for me it was like um kind of dark and in that kind of core genre while
mm.
being big and open, and like that's something really hard to find. And so like congratulations on like hitting that right on the head, man.
Thank you.
It's really cool.
Yeah, that was a fun track is because that was the second, like we literally when I worked with Andy, the first track we wrote to like well he was there was actually Lucid, like instrumentally, and he just loved
Mhm.
that one the most, and he was like, I want to do this one. I was like, all right. And then this was actually the Abyss is the second one I wrote just for the hell of it, just for I was like, here's another track. And and we both liked that one out of the other demos, even though we had a lot more demos at the time to kind of choose from. We were like, okay, that one makes the most sense for the next track because it's kind of like Lucid. It has the same like melody and heavy heavies, but mixed with like Andy can show off essentially. And I love that because that's the point of the project is like all my technical abilities, even though some of the songs I do go pretty crazy and have a lot of fun, I like to shove it all underlying, throughout the song as like little things, like even with lo-fi or like ambient things in the background. And I like to really just be like, here, Andy, like here's this like really nice, just supporting structure for you, dude. Do your thing. Because I know how talented he is. And I'm like, even though he showcases it in different ways in a lot of his bands, I'm like, dude, all these bands have him showcasing only kind of one big part of him. And I'm like, dude, all that in Termina and just go for it. And I make sure that the instrumental is like just really set up so he can do the, like Makari, like Wander, like really good cleans that he's such a good singer, but also like the straight up deathcore,
Oh yeah,
everything else when it comes to the screams
his
as
screams are
well.
mind blowing.
Yeah, my dude Spider-Man, they're killing it on the
Yeah,
screams. Yeah, and it's
he's
just
crazy.
that's kind of where we're going with it now. And now that I have like this secret weapon that is Andy, essentially, I'm just surprisingly, even though this project was originally supposed to be more easy core and more mainstream focused, the album is mostly so far deathcore tracks. And Lucid and the Abyss are actually some of the softer ones, which is kind of weird to me because again, it was meant to be a much more accessible chill. thing, but just because Andy has the versatility, we're doing this weird deathcore with pop choruses kind of thing. So I hope
Yeah.
people dig it.
Yeah. And like to kind of close the loop, we are a youth radio station, and
Mm-hmm.
I am like pretty much out of like probably like out of 9 people, I'm the only one who listens to like metal deathcore. And so I kind of wanted to pose a question to you from a youth
Sure.
perspective. Like, do you think kids listen to metal? Like, is
Mm.
it as popular as it once was for in that kind of rebellious teen culture, as you know?
I think it is because all those people that grew up and they had kids, and those kids are now,
Hmm.
subjected to all the music their parents was listening to, and then they discovered this new stuff. So I think this is the perfect time actually for that, because it's just a reimmersion of all
Yeah.
the kids that now are listening to music because their parents loved that stuff when they were younger.
Yeah.
So I think it's becoming a lot more accessible. I don't think it's as weird to be like necessary. And again, hey, I haven't been to school in like years, but I think it must be a little bit easier because there's just a big immersion of him to be kind of the metal kid at school. Because I feel like there has to be at least a few metal kids now at
Yeah.
school. It's not just like that one outcast that we were all that one outcasted metal kid at the school. You're like,
Yeah.
oh damn it, why me? Right? Why?
Exactly.
But now I feel like it's just more of a common thing. And it's like, if you listen to metal, it's like, it's cool. It's like this weird, energetic music that, when you're younger, you don't really understand.
Hmm.
And you just love the energy of it, and people can connect with it. And they seem to be a little more accepting of it in general, which I think is awesome. I think that's great to see.
Yeah.
So,
And I think when like kids like me and you probably, when they ask, well, why do you listen to metal? Like, doesn't that stuff make you anxious, and doesn't
mm,
that stuff put you on edge? And we're like, no, it makes me happy. Like, it
mm,
gives me that same like, oh my God, this is amazing feeling, like hip
mm,
hop or pop does for you. Like, it's just we all get a feeling when we listen to our favorite genre of music that's like, oh my God, this is the most amazing feeling in the world. And a lot of a lot of musicians are probably like, well, I want to make people feel like that. And so I think a lot of people are coming to understand it more, especially when
yeah,
you tell it from that perspective.
yeah,
um and like, it's really cool to see this kind of stuff. And maybe like one band could, bring it back into the mainstream. Like, if Motionless has that one track that's like active rocky poppy enough to
mm,
kind of sway all of the big like pop rock fans into the metal genre, we could
mm,
have like a big kind of almost renaissance where it
mm.
kind of comes back into the mainstream. Like, because Manson's like peak years were like 96, 98, and he had those kind of songs that were like, and then also the kids who listen to him. But do you think that could happen, like just having that one song?
Oh yeah, I think it's been happening with a few of the bands. Like obviously, Bring Me,
Yeah.
emotion, and even Motionless with some of their songs like Voices. Like I've
Hmm.
seen those got the views on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
They're hitting that target. You know what I mean? And a lot of those bands, and nowadays it's actually weird. It's like popular to be heavy. I know in like the kind of 2015 to 2019, it was almost like, okay, all the bands are going softer now and trying to get the pop rock. But now it's in to be heavy, which is so funny. So all those bands that also got those pop rock and those pop, and the more chill listeners are also bringing a bit of the heavy back. So those kids are all going to be listening to that heavy, like it or not, which is
Yep.
really, really cool to see. And yeah, I think it's just become more normal to just listen to metal because it just has this unique dark energy. And plus, even a lot of the pop stars, or not a lot, but like some of the pop stars and the rap stars and all that stuff, again, they're the kids of the parents who grew
Yeah.
up on rock and metal now. So even they're the ones, and they're the ones like leading the industry, of course, Post
Yeah.
Malone being
Oh,
like
I
a
was
big
about to
one.
say.
Yeah, and it's like seeing that and that being accepted also in the mainstream, I think is like it's eventually just it's the taboo of metal, is going to just go, I think, away completely. And it's just going to be,
Mhm.
here's another genre of music
Mhm.
that is, not scary to listen to when you're younger and the parents don't disapprove of anymore. It's just part
Mhm.
of the culture, I think. So,
Exactly. Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and take this time for the radio station.